Punch card. Holes in cardboard. That's where your data started. A hole means 1, no hole means 0, and a machine reads the pattern by shining light through the card. Herman Hollerith built the first one to count the 1890 U.S. Census, and the company he started grew into IBM. Here's the thing nobody tells you, though. The whole evolution of memory is really one journey in a single direction. From this, a slab of paper you hold in your hand, all the way inside your processor, to something so fast it makes an SSD look prehistoric and so small it holds barely a few hundred bytes. Say more the entire way. Speed versus space. Because one card held about 80 characters. 80. A single phone photo today would need tens of thousands of them, stacked taller than you. That's the trade in its rawest form, and every device from here is just fighting it better. So here's the rule for the whole ride. Get faster, you give up space. And the closer we crawl toward the processor, the more brutal that trade gets. HDD. Fast forward, and that cardboard becomes the machine that ran the world for 50 years. Spinning metal platters coated in magnetic film with an arm that flicks across the surface to read and write. Basically a record player for your files. IBM shipped the first one in 1956. It was the size of a fridge and held about 5 megabytes. Today, the same idea gives you terabytes for pocket change. The platter's spinning at 5,400 or 7,200 revolutions per minute and pushing 100 to 160 megabytes a second. Here's the catch, and it's a big one. It's mechanical, and moving parts wear out. Drop a running laptop, and that arm can slam into the platter and take everything with it. Most last 3 to 5 years before something gives. I've personally lost a drive to exactly that. Laptop slid off the couch, one ugly click, gone. It's the workhorse that refuses to die, right up until the day it suddenly does. SSD. The real revolution wasn't a faster disk. It was deleting the disk entirely. Instead of spinning platters, this stores data in flash memory, tiny cells that each hold a charge with nothing moving at all. No arm, no spin-up, no waiting. It's why a machine that takes 2 minutes to boot off a hard drive boots in seconds off one of these. You get speeds up to around 600 megabytes a second on the common SATA version. And because there's nothing to physically break, it shrugs off the drops and knocks that murder hard drives. They tend to last 5 to 10 years. The catch is quieter than that. Those flash cells wear out a little every single time you write to them. And here's the part that surprises people. A worn-out SSD left unplugged can actually start losing data in as little as a year, the charge slowly leaking out of the cells. Silence and speed, with an expiration date you never see. Fast SSD, and that 600 megabyte number? That was the slow one. Take the brakes off and you get this, the little gum stick that slots straight onto the motherboard and talks to the processor directly, instead of crawling through an old hard drive cable. Same flash memory, completely different highway. We've gone from megabytes a second to gigabytes, and the fastest consumer drives now push past 14 gigabytes a second, an order of magnitude beyond any SATA drive. That's the difference between a game-level loading and a game level just being there. I personally check for one of these first when a PC feels sluggish. Half the time, the storage is the bottleneck, not the chip. But all that speed runs hot. Move that much data and the drive starts to cook itself. So it'll deliberately throttle down to keep from overheating. The fastest storage ever made, quietly slowing itself down to avoid melting. RAM. Now the whole story flips. Everything up to here had one job. Remember your data after the power goes off. This doesn't. The instant you cut the power, RAM forgets all of it, completely in less than a blink. So why build memory that's this forgetful? Because forgetful is fast. This is your computer's desk. The stuff it's actively working on right now. Your open tabs, your running game, lives here because it can be reached far quicker than any drive, in nanoseconds instead of milliseconds. Quick question. How much RAM is in the machine you're watching this on? Drop it in the comments. And if this is finally making the whole hierarchy click, hit the like button. It genuinely helps the channel. The downside is baked into the forgetting. RAM is volatile and pricey per gigabyte, so you get a handful of it sitting next to terabytes of storage. It's the exact reason an unsaved document dies the second the power blinks. Cache. Even RAM is too slow for the processor. So engineers bolted a smaller, faster memory directly onto the CPU itself, a cheat sheet of the data it's about to need. When the processor reaches for something and finds it here instead of out in RAM, it skips a trip that, in chip time, feels like an eternity. It comes in layers, L1, L2, L3, each one bigger but a touch slower than the last, with the fastest answers landing in single-digit nanoseconds. The only reason your CPU isn't constantly sitting around waiting on RAM is this hidden layer guessing right. The trade-off is brutal economics. This memory is so fast and so expensive to build that you get megabytes of it, sometimes just kilobytes at the innermost layer, next to gigabytes of ordinary RAM. Speed this pure, you simply can't afford much of. Registers. And right at the center, where the cheat sheet ends, sits the thing actually doing the thinking. These are storage slots built straight into the processor's core, and they're the fastest memory in the entire machine, reached in a single tick of the clock, quicker than even the cache. When your CPU adds two numbers, compares them, multiplies anything at all, the values are sitting right here at that exact instant. This is where computation literally happens. And here's the kicker. After punch cards, holding bytes and hard drives, holding terabytes, this, the fastest, most important memory in your whole computer, holds just a few hundred bytes. The entire journey, from holes in cardboard to the silent heart of the processor, ends on something smaller than this paragraph. That's the whole war in one machine. Space at the bottom, speed at the top, and every layer in between existing for one reason only: to feed the few bytes that actually do the work.